Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
So back at the end of December and the beginning of January, I was stuck right in the center of the Bermuda Triangle. Anyone want to hear some stories from my time in the Bermuda Triangle? Some are /X/ related, some aren't, but all of them are true. I've got some that will make the thalassophobia uneasy, and some that will simply make you say, what the hell? I'll start with the spookiest thing that happened out there. Sitting around just drifting because the weather is too shit to fish in. We're taking turns doing watches. A watch is usually 3 hours, so everyone gets at least 6 hours of sleep. Buddy is on watch and my watch is next. But for whatever reason, I can't stay asleep, head up to the wheelhouse to shoot the shit and pass the time. It helps you to stay awake on watch if you've got something to do other than watch whatever was on the DVR. We weren't in an area where we could get satellite TV or radio for some weird reason. Look outside to see if the waves were getting any smaller. Notice a weird light, somewhat orange like a fire on the horizon. It was just a sliver of light coming vertically up from the horizon. And it was raining on a night with a nearly full moon, so it couldn't have been that. Nothing within the maximum range of our radar, and the closest boat was a 750-foot container ship that was nearly 100 miles away. Stayed up until morning just to make sure it wasn't a ship that would hit us. The next night there weren't any clouds and we could see the moon, but we could also see the orange sliver on the horizon. After that, we never saw it again. No idea what the hell it was, but it never showed up on radar, and it never showed up on the list of boats with an automatic identification system that were remotely close to us.
Just to humor you, sure. Tell me a story about a part of the ocean.
Not particularly spooky, but might trigger the thalassophobia. When you're looking out into water at night that's over a mile deep and pretty clear, it's difficult to tell whether the weird darkening of the ocean underneath you is a massive creature, or something simple like somebody walking by one of the lights. It's difficult to notice a slight shadow on the decks when there's multiple light sources, but in the water light simply fades, and when one light source is blocked, the depth at which you can see is significantly decreased. There was one time while we're setting lines that we actually passed by a blue whale, which was pretty neat. Pods of dolphins were a regular occurrence, and I would often cut up bait and toss little chunks to them. The wildest part of the experience isn't paranormal, but just really weird. During our first trip, the captain brought out his pet pig. His rationale? The Coast Guard doesn't particularly like pets on offshore boats, but a live pig is a food product. Now this pig definitely wasn't food, otherwise my friend and I would have cooked it up about 3 days into the trip. It had quite a love for jalapeno Cheetos. If you gave it some, it would be your best friend for about 30 seconds until it decided it needed more. Since jalapeno Cheetos were my favorite snack that we had, I hid all of them in my bunk where it was completely impossible for the pig to get, and its gluttony didn't stop at Cheetos. This pig ate more sandwiches than the whole crew combined. You just put your sandwich down on the table and went into the fridge for a drink? Wrong move, pal. In the 3 seconds you were distracted, your sandwich has been completely devoured by the pig. Thinking of drinks, if you're rocking back and forth 40 degrees, you have to get inventive in order to not wear your drink. There was nowhere on the boat where there wasn't a roll of duct tape within reach, and within reason. A cup holder can only be in one place and is generally permanently attached to somewhere, but a fresh roll of duct tape holds a solo cup quite nicely, doesn't tip over, is movable, and most importantly, doesn't slide. Here's a pic of the pig. When we first thought it was plain funny we'd have a pig with us. We caught a lot of lancet. Not my pick, but this is what they look like out there, and let me tell you, when they're alive, you do not want to fuck with them. If it was alive, we would just cut off the hook and let it go. If it was dead, we used a really long pair of pliers to grab the hook and pull it out, since getting nicked by one of those teeth can send you into a world of hurt.
Watch some docs about it. They theorize that there's large pockets of gas escaping from the Earth. So when a ship goes over it, there's a chance they encounter one of these huge bubbles rising to the surface. When it does surface, there's basically a huge pocket to engulf the ship that it basically falls into below the surface, and it sinks instantly once it levels out from taking on water. Planes I can't explain away. And my first theory is just secondhand info that seems to make sense. But hey, I don't know enough about it. I'm no expert, clearly.
It's called methane clathrate, and the gas burps can be enormous. For a ship, it's like falling into a hole in the water that instantly closes up over it. Also, a lot of ships, of varying sizes, travel through that area. So the odds of this happening are higher than other places with the same methane burps. For planes flying low, methane pockets can displace oxygen and cause old-style rotary engines to stall, or pilots to black out or hallucinate. New planes, jets, that fly higher are unaffected by this, so aerial incidents there have decreased. Also, rotary planes crash all the time, so any crashing there would not seem abnormal. Of course, this is exactly what a glowy trying to cover up the Philadelphia experiment would say.
There's a secret human trafficking site. It's a location unknown to visitors. Locals descend from stateless pirate collectives who always manage to keep their hideout a secret. They've managed to survive by accumulating incomparable wealth and upgrading their small society to technologically the highest standards, while still preserving necessary stealth. Deserters who wish to secede will receive the death penalty. If you are near their base, they will find you before you find them. They will hijack your goods and enslave you. One of their trades is entertainment for the riches of the elites. Their territory is comprised of several islands and the surrounding waters in the area. Regardless of their savage ways, they tailor the highest source of entertainment that money can buy. Their service may extend to any sort of transport of choice, ranging from a hired pilot or captain to transport you to the secret location, or offering transportation by yacht or helicopter. Among the possible attractions are parties, matches, hunting games, gambling, gladiator fights, battle royale, all of which anyone can choose to participate to their degree of desired involvement. Rarely does anyone take the risk to take part in a battle royale unprotected or unarmed, which are usually only for spectators to watch for amusement. Most games involve captured or bred slaves. Since this atoll was founded in a time where slave trade was commonplace, they managed to remain doing this practice and turn tradition into their monopoly. Locals govern their society by status and clearance. Most people are workers unwary of the civilized world around them, and work can range from anywhere to cleaning and housekeeping to death squads and clearing a hunting ground at the end of a game. Little is known about their numbers and culture. Numbers range from 1 to 5 million, a large part of which live their life in captivity and enslavement. Reportedly, numerous eugenic experiments are also held, but little is known about their scientific development. Their risk to international peace is restricted to harvesting innocent people from nearby lands. They conduct their business globally, being a major player on the international scale. The benefit for remote, poor, corrupt areas is that they can abduct far more people than can be registered, and they have the ability to destroy peaceful countries for their personal gain of making it easier for them to abduct people. Side effects of their presence range from political unrest, protests, poverty, a high degree of Minecraft YouTuber activity, civil war, hunger, a high birth rate, and humanitarian organizations. They are necessarily run by psychopaths who agree on their collective law to uphold their secret society and maintain their legacy for their heir. They consider themselves above mankind religiously and regard their own as equals in status and pride. They are highly xenophobic, brutal, and racist, while also operating with great intelligence, skilled diplomacy, and advanced technology, gaining power, friendship, and resources from all around the world. Most of their partners barely realize who they are conducting business with, as they may present themselves as a corporation or anything else that suits the occasion. They will never reveal themselves to anyone who they haven't probed and tested thoroughly in advance, and always follow a tactical plan when dealing with the outside. Their signature business offer is access to their mysterious services, parties, and games. Their clients typically assume it is a location near or in Ibiza. They can be politicians, scientists, military, who they need information from, or criminals who got their attention. Aside from flattery, their persuasion can involve blackmail as they monitor visitor activity to a T, capturing the most incriminating and heinous moments that tourists commit during their stay. Rarely does someone from the outside find a true ally in them. in which case it's not unusual to be taken up in their ranks. For example, they may organize residence for retired public figures. Since the highest rank of this society has access to world politics and entertainment, they may consider granting a safe haven for people who they admire or regret to see parting when they might as well enjoy their company. They will be transported and the nature of their society disclosed to them according to their moral values. Some would rarely miss a spectacle of battle royale, even sometimes standing up and shouting in pure ecstasy, as if cheering for his favorite sports team. Fun fact: North Korea was entirely installed by them because their involvement during the war caused them to unwittingly capture their highest officials, leaving behind a power vacuum, which to them would be more economical to replace and control. The camps serve as eugenics facilities to breed super soldiers to defend the border. They spread propaganda about it being political torture camps to blur the truth. They have keen knowledge on the United States judicial system. A lot of inmates are transported and used as hunters and gladiators, reaching tremendous fame during their career in the society. Some of the more elaborate events is where, once in a generation or so, they manage to raise prisoners in a fabricated reality similar to an era of their choosing to reenact historic battles in real time, with the actors truly believing they are actually dying for the same cause as the original event in history as it occurred. For example, the landing on Normandy, or Spartacus's slave army. Of course, these would be simplified and not the same in small details, but they're like theatrical plays, except the actors are unaware that they're meant to kill each other for show, and that they live in an entirely different era. The great Machiavellian skill of this ancient tribe of pirates has made them excellent actors. Rumor has it, Hollywood is seeded with their genetic material.
Okay, so I don't know if there's ever been a Bermuda thread here on /x/ or if any other Bermudians even post or lurk this board, but I feel like sharing my experiences from growing up on that tiny island. First off, I want to say that I'll answer any questions you might have. I can't prove that I'm from Bermuda at this current time because I'm still in Canada at university, but if I was back home, I could take a picture and prove it with EXIF data, etc. But I can't, so I won't. Every time I meet someone and tell them where I'm from, I always get asked about the triangle. Disappearances don't usually occur, and I go pretty far offshore for deep-sea fishing. Probably not far enough to be considered in the triangle, but far enough where you don't see any land. Just the other day, a wreck occurred and a man washed up dead, but I think that was just mechanical trouble with the boat. So in my opinion, the Bermuda Triangle thing is pretty much just a myth, but weird stuff does happen. One of the biggest myths and urban legends of Bermuda among youth is that of Banton the Bumpy Man, which is pronounced as Bonton the Bumpy Mon, bumpy = bum, butt. My godmother's sons were the first to tell me the story of apparently Bonton was a massive Jamaican man with long matted dreads. He was said to wander the island at night, but would also appear on other islands. Bermuda is a chain of islands. The mainland is made up of the two biggest islands bridged together. There's about 100 islands total, although most are pretty small. Bonton is basically the Bermudian boogeyman, embodied by a large Jamaican. Like the boogeyman, he comes out at night to collect little boys and girls that are out later than they should be. One of the things that sets him apart from the boogeyman is that rather than just stealing children off into the night, he violently assaults boys to death, hence the whole Bumpy Man aspect of his name, but just murders girls. Yes, I was told this story as a child. After I was told this story, I was obviously spooked, but I didn't believe it, so I asked my mom about it, and she confirmed it too. It was a story that she and her brothers were told as children too. On nights that I would stay up too late, she'd tell me to go to sleep, or Bonton would sense me and come into my room to get me. This kind of stuff scared the shit out of me. One thing about Bermuda that a lot of people don't know is that we actually have a relatively large population of Native Americans that reside on the farthest part of one side of the island, known as St. David's. I personally don't go to St. David's unless I really have to. Weird shit goes down there. I used to hear people joke about how the Native American people would talk about goat people living in St. David's. I always assumed they meant like half-man, half-goat kind of things, like a faun or a satyr, but only recently has it occurred to me that they were probably talking about Wendigos. The Wendigo legend originates from Algonquian natives, and those just so happen to be the natives in Bermuda too. Back when my mum was a kid, there were stories of cannibalism in St. David's. Missing people that never turned up, but sometimes human remains would be found in bushes, partly eaten. We have no land predators or any large wild mammals in Bermuda besides the occasional stray dog. Nothing like this has happened for a long time now, and nowadays the only times when bodies are found it's chalked up to murder, and the culprits are found. Next up, a personal story. About 3 or 4 years ago, a group of friends and I were celebrating a friend's birthday. We got kinda drunk and wanted to drink somewhere cool and different, so one friend suggested going to this big water catch not too far away, maybe like a 5 to 10 minute drive. It was pretty late, so we knew no one would be there. By the time we left, there was about 15 to 20 of us in total. When we arrived, we had to park our bikes, LOL mopeds, and one car behind a barrier on the road that then led up to where the water catch was. The sides of the water catch was pretty high for the most part, but there was a section of it that was low enough to climb up. But to get to it, we had to walk through some dense bush to get to it. So after a lot of trial and error, we eventually found that spot and got on top. Being on the water catch itself was really cool because it was a really clear night and the moon was full and the moonlight would reflect off the water catch, so it was pretty bright up there. The party continued, we kept drinking and everything seemed fine. At one point, 3 of my friends, whom I'll call Andrew, Jim, and Harry, Andrew was the birthday boy, decided to go back to the car and bikes to get more supplies. We get back to it and can barely hear the party now. Andy and Jim get their fix and decide to head back, leaving myself and Harry to finish our cigarettes and conversation. When we're done, we head back up to the party and continue as usual. It takes about 5 or 10 minutes for me to realize that something's wrong. Andrew wasn't with us. I started asking people if they had seen him. Jim said that he stopped to piss on the way back and asked Andrew to wait, but instead he just kept walking, so he figured he got back to the party. We all got worried, so we tried calling him, but it kept going straight to voicemail. We assumed he got lost, he was really drunk, and fell asleep somewhere. We then split up into groups of 4 to 5 and started a search. My group searched the water catch, and everyone else went to check the road. Some of the guys managed to fit their bikes through the barrier and started to drive around the road calling out his name. This is when it got really creepy. We have tree frogs in Bermuda, and if any of you are familiar with them, you should know how noisy they are. I'll post a link at the bottom in case you don't know. Having grown up around them, we don't notice it when they're there. It's like second nature, it just blends in with all the other sounds. It was dead silent. No tree frogs. We could feel the absence. As well as that, a lot of cloud cover was moving in, so the moon started to get dark. This was also weird because there was little to no wind, and the clouds were moving really quick. Then the creepiest sound I've ever heard happened. As we were walking along, calling his name, we heard what sounded like metal being slowly dragged across the side of the water catch, no more than 15 feet away from us. We all stopped, and the sound dragged on for about 10 seconds. The text limit was reached, so I couldn't fit the link in. Here it is. Ignore the rest of the video, the beginning is all you need. Back to the story. After hearing the sound stopped, we picked up the pace a bit and started shouting his name louder and louder. Still no sign. We called the other guys and they said they still hadn't found him. Clouds were covering the sky now, so it was now extremely dark. When we had finished scouring the water catch and started heading back to where we could get off, we heard another unsettling sound. It was like a woman screaming, but a bit off. There were a couple girls in the other search parties, so I assumed it was one of them. We rushed over to the side that it had come from, still on the water catch. The guys on the bikes had heard it too, because we soon saw them driving up to the spot. When the bikes showed up, they illuminated the rest of the group, who had also heard it and headed that way, except for 2 people, a girl and a guy that were dating. The people that they were with said they got separated while walking through the bushes and couldn't reach them on their phones. So now we had 3 missing people, erratic tree frog behavior, and 2 ridiculously eerie sounds, on top of the fact that we were all drunk as shit. Luckily, the edge wasn't too high on this side of the water catch, so with a little help we got down and joined the rest of the group. We all decided no more splitting up and that we'd continue the search together. After about 30 minutes, we got a call from the boyfriend saying that he had to take the girl home because she was passing out from being too drunk, and figured we'd find Andrew because we had enough people. Okay, so we had been searching for a long time now, probably about 3 to 4 hours, and still no sign of him. The sun started to rise and we were all burnt out. We didn't know what to do. Some of us said we should call the cops. Others disagreed because they knew he had weed on him, and if was just drunk and passed out that he would get fucked for that. Drug laws are crazy back home. Also, we were all on public property, some are underage and drinking, etc. Then we got a call. It was Andy. He sounded like shit, like he'd gotten beaten half to death. He said he was in a lot of pain and that he was on a beach. We had already checked the beach, but we went again. We get to the beach and start calling his name and phone again. Once again, the phone was off. Since the sun was now shining, it made the search a lot easier. We eventually stumbled across footprints in the sand and what appeared to be a trail beside it, as if something had been dragged along. We followed the tracks to jagged rocks about 8 or 10 feet high. We shout his name again, and in return we hear a groan from the other side. We start clambering up the rocks, cutting ourselves in the process, and jump down to the other side. We were lucky to get there when we did. We found him covered in dirt and sand, laying down on his side. The water levels had started rising and his feet had already started getting wet. The back of his shirt was pretty torn and there were cuts up and down his back. We pulled him away from the water and sat him against a smooth part of the rock and took off his bloodied shirt and gave him my hoodie, something to drink, and a cigarette. We were all so relieved to find him, but we also wanted to know what happened, but he wouldn't talk for the first few minutes, so we just reassured him that it was all right, and to take his time until he felt well enough to speak. When he finally regained consciousness and realized what had happened, he started freaking out at one of my friends, pointing at him and yelling not to trust him. The guy was obviously confused and asked what the hell he was talking about. According to Andy, when he was on his way back, he had ran into the guy who offered to smoke a spliff with him, mono, but he had to follow him. Being as drunk as he was, he agreed and started following him towards the bushes. He said they walked for a while, and the longer they walked, the less the other guy spoke, and that he started to smell this really nasty smell, and then blacked out. He then remembers being dragged along the beach for a few moments before passing out again, and then that was it. He didn't remember calling us on his phone at all. The guy accused of doing it was freaked out, but our friends quickly jumped to his defense, saying he had never left the party. We were all really creeped out, but the sun was out, and the creepy noises stopped, and we had found him, so we were mostly relieved. A lot of the group left and went home when we found him, but the ones who stayed until he was ready to go. We told him about what we heard, and he didn't say anything, just stared out towards the ocean as the waves started to beat against the shore. Eventually, we got him up and into my buddy's car. The rest of us followed on our bikes. After we got him home, we all shared one last long silence and cigarette together before parting ways and going to sleep. I've never gone back to that part of the island, and don't really ever intend to again.
Any more up?
Nothing to the extent of the main story, and I've never heard of anything like that since. There's been some other spooky stuff though, I guess. I remember being 16 and driving to a friend's house at like midnight. On the way there, I saw an old lady standing in the middle of an entrance to a residential area by the main road in nothing but a nightgown. No shoes or anything in the dead of winter. Even though it's Bermuda, it still gets pretty chilly, especially with the wind. About 4 hours later, while driving home, I saw her in the exact spot, not moving at all. I didn't sleep very well for a few nights after that. Other spooky stuff is usually just people being creeps. Friends that get their houses broken into a lot say they've woken up and seen handprints on their windows like someone's been peering inside. Other times they've been in their rooms with their dogs and their dogs started acting really weird, and they'd hear something moving around while no one else was home. Shit like that.
Bermuda Triangle, a timeless void. It was a late-night Sunday, April 13th, 1975. Fort Lauderdale radio host Ray Smithers was conducting a hotline call-in show on the Bermuda Triangle. Triangle fever was at its hottest in 1975. Interest was intense. The phone lines were jammed. All lights on the phones were blinking, indicating listeners waiting on the other end. About 45 minutes into the show, the producer, Mr. Moore, went to answer more phones. He pushed the button and answered, "WFTL, you're on the air." The line was dead. There was no indication anyone was there. Moore went down the row of lights, pushing each one and answering, "Hello, you're on the air." Each line was dead. Then, finally, he hit the sixth light and opened the next line. "WWFTL, hello, you're on the air." A man's voice spoke. "Caller, there's one of you on the program who'll understand what I'm going to say. Every living thing on this planet has an aura. It is its communication with the millionth council who governs this planet. The area that you are discussing now is the aura of this planet. It is the communicative channel through which the millionth council governs this planet." Smithers. "Which council, sir?" Smithers. "Caller, the millionth council." Smithers. "The millionth?" Caller. "Millionth?" Anyone going into the area when the communicative channels is open do not disappear, but they are in the timeless void. They're all perfectly alive and well. It is the only area through which the council can communicate with this planet. Call cuts off. The caller spoke in a deep voice. He spoke carefully, as if he was reading the lines. The next morning, WFTL's morning DJ show host mentioned on the air that they had a really successful Bermuda Triangle show last night. The switchboard lit up, according to Smithers. Many people called in and expressed how they had a negative physical or mental response to the guy who had called in.
There are 3 different locations on the Earth where fully natural dimension gates arise periodically. These gates signify a nature-based danger, cosmically caused and originating from time flows. This natural danger is the originator of many happenings, which affect the normal time of Earth, but just at those places where they appear. The events concerning the Bermuda Triangle are known worldwide, which is also to their benefit analyzed by certain dark figures. Those are seafaring men of Earth, which are also exploited by certain dark elements for their benefit, from simple piracy up to mass murder. They viciously board small cargo and passenger ships, seize the freight and the valuables, and then murder the crew and passengers. This is a kind of event that happens over there from time to time. Another form of occurrence in the Bermuda Triangle stems from a process natural to Earth. This area is naturally endangered due to the dangerous rising up of seabed gases, which cause many ships navigating this location to suffer shipwreck over there and often submerge with all of their crew and passengers into the sea, never to be found again. The reason of those events is also that at this location the entire seabed is in constant motion and relentlessly lifting and lowering itself. In that way, huge underwater mountains and plateaus are often within a few hours pressed upwards and changing the surface and subsurface of the sea. Very often, those changes are detected much too late by the skippers and their crews, and thus they and their ships collide at full speed with the upward pressed masses. But now I want to explain the dimension gate to you. As already said, it is a cosmic phenomenon. Such a dimension gate represents a natural cosmic phenomenon, a barrier between your normal time and a dimension unknown to you. In the given case, this other dimension has a parallel world to Earth, which is, however, subject to greater fluctuations in landscape at some points. The dimension barrier, or the dimension gate, is caused by a cosmic elimination transformation radiation, which wavers and occurs periodically. Its point of origin of various giant suns in a galaxy unknown to you within a universe of other dimensions, which are sending out their radiations and are meeting in the other space-time structure in 7.2 light-years distance beyond the Earth. Over there they begin to flow into one another and to bundle up. The Earth is the exact endpoint in the space-time structure of the Dern universe, where this radiation is hitting highly concentratedly and producing the effect of a dimension barrier. As the Earth moves, like all structures in the universe, this radiation, divided into a 3-arm only, hits the planet at 3 locations, when the Earth is moving exactly in the focus of the wandering radiation, causing the 2 dimensions to be able to touch each other via the radiation. The radiation itself produces the effect of an elimination of the normal time in a manner of evoking a transformation. That means that the structure of the earthly normal time is at the radiation flashpoints transformed into the timeless, through which the normal time is eliminated. This transformation layer is still located far outside of the actual center, which is already located in the other dimension. It is a similar process as the one known to you with cyclones. In the actual center of the storm, there is calm, while the vortex contains the actual storm. The outer rings and whirls are the transition layer from stormless to the storm. It is similar to the dimension gate. The outer layers represent the transformation layer from the earthly normal time to the other dimension. The vortex's radiation contains the actual transition in it, while the center constitutes already the other dimension, a different universe resp, a different dimension within a different time layer. Previous post, you are seeing the depiction of a storm. At the outside, there is the transition layer, or the transition zone. Outside of this layer, normal weather conditions are still prevailing, while conditions in the light layer itself are being changed. There is first calm and very sultry heat. Deep quietness is also related to it because the voices of nature remain silent as they feel the nearing of the storm. Only over here the actual belt of the storm or storm zone is located. Within this belt, nature's elements and all power of the storm are raging, while over here in the center, calm and quiet prevail. You see in my drawing that the principle of the storm follows and acts according to a precise harmony with the cosmic construction. This is the same event that emerges during the formation of a galaxy. The laws in macrocosm and microcosm are exactly the same and differ only in their order of magnitude. When you now start with the same drawing and imagine to see the dimensions barrier in it, you are again getting the same principle. Relatively seen, the processes remain exactly the same, with the only difference of their forces equaling fundamentally different types. Concerning the dimension gate, the forces are purely cosmic energies, radiations of a very special kind. The effect of the vortex or the spiral does anyhow remain the same, even if the appearance is different. The transition belt, the storm belt and the center are also present here, just in a different form than for a galaxy, or for a storm of nature's elements on a planet or a star, especially on the sun. The transition zone, or the transition layer, is to be compared with a transition time between two world eras. The old and traditional normal time is still available, but it is already allowing a view into the other time level, into the other dimension and other world. So when a flying object enters this zone, with life forms sitting in it, well then, they are still in the normal time, but are already looking into the other time layer, into the other world. Because during their flight they are looking forwards, they see a world totally foreign to them and a foreign landscape, as if they had never been there before. By the powers of the vortex, life forms, as long as they are not familiar with these happenings and are not possessing the required devices and apparatuses, lose control over their flying devices and are driven that way into the actual passage whirl, into the actual dimension gate. Over there they are then already solely seeing the other world in the other dimension, while their normal time is already behind them. Then they are driven into the center of the spiral whirl and are therefore in the other time layer, thus in another world, resp, in a dimension totally foreign to them. Should they lack the required apparatuses and other devices, they become prisoners of the foreign dimension for all times, and a return into their normal time won't be there anymore for them. In and of itself, this happens rather frequently in the Bermuda Triangle, and earthly aircrafts are repeatedly disappearing over there, unable to ever return again. Many of these events in particular are related to the use of earthly aircrafts for hunting the beam ships of the life forms that are living there in underwater stations. The aircrafts are unexpectedly getting into the radiation of the dimensions barrier that suddenly gets active and are carried off course into the other time layer, from where no return is possible for them. It still remains to explain that not only flying machines are getting into these transformation spirals, but also ships and individual life forms, because the radiation field and the power of the elimination transformation of the worlds sometimes reaches to the surface of the sea.
/X/ you have to listen. We were never meant to explore the oceans. We are in grave danger if we do. The oceans are a danger zone. If we continue to defile and destroy the sanctity of our waters, we are getting into dire circumstances that cannot be fixed. First of all, we are land mammals. It is obvious the ocean isn't our natural habitat. We are meant to be land-bound, not sea-bound. We are invading hostile territory. There are things in the ocean unexplainable that are smarter than us and are willing to kill us to protect themselves. We are but a chimpanzee compared to them, and we are destroying their home. The Bermuda Triangle was a sacred place to this people, scared off by the fishing industry. There are powers in the Bermuda Triangle caused by structures that create underwater currents. The Bermuda Triangle is a sacred burial ground, and the structures that create these underwater currents is a death trap to keep us out. These structures highly resemble the pyramids with multiple holes going through them. Hurricanes and typhoons aren't natural anymore. They can occur naturally, but they are stronger than they actually should be. They are being fueled by the people of the ocean to kill us. They are targeting highly populated areas of the world that pollute the ocean. This counts for most earthquakes as well. The Ring of Fire is a giant defense mechanism created by these people in hopes to scare people living on the coast to go back into the mainland. These people heavily resemble our depiction of aliens. They want us dead. I've told you all I know. It is pieces and information that I got quickly before they found me. I'm going to make another run for information tomorrow to fill in the holes. There are massive creatures in the ocean. The oceans are deeper than we think. These creatures can devour blue whales easily, like a wolf versus a rabbit. We are doomed, people. The ocean is no man's land. There are unspeakable horrors who want us dead.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check the Odyssey and Rumble pages for separate archives of previous broadcasts.